What if there was a way to transcend all negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions? What if there was a way to silence the voice in your head? What if there was a way to actually experience and live from pure consciousness, pure being, pure awareness, that place deep within your heart that contains peace that surpasses all understanding? The true self, the part of our essence that I talked about in my last video. Well, I'm here to tell you from my own experience and from the countless experiences of other people that there absolutely is a way. And this way is the ancient practice of meditation. Now, before I get into what meditation is, how to practice it, and how it can absolutely change your life, I want to start off by talking about some of the misconceptions that people typically have about it. Because until we break free from these misconceptions, it will be very challenging to fully understand just how profound, powerful, and life-changing this ancient practice really is. Now, up until a few years ago, I didn't really know much about meditation. And that was primarily because my spiritual tradition growing up never really talked about it or practiced it. So because of my very limited knowledge and understanding of what meditation was, I always thought that it was just some super strict spiritual discipline that was only practiced by monks and super spiritual people. But this was definitely a misconception, because meditation is practiced all over the world. It's practiced in just about all religions, and even people who are not religious practice meditation. Meditation is a human being thing, not necessarily a religious thing. It doesn't require any specific religious or spiritual affiliation. Now, when I broke away from the belief structure of my upbringing and started my journey on studying what meditation was all about, I discovered some really fascinating things right off the bat. The first thing I realized was that meditation is a lot simpler than I thought. You see, growing up, I thought that meditation was where you tried to quiet and empty your mind completely, and where you try to not think about anything. But for me, every time I tried to get still and quiet my mind, this would only cause me to think even more. The voice in my head would get louder and my thoughts would just increase. And I'm sure many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I figured that meditation would never work for me, because when I got still and quiet, which again, that's what I thought meditation was all about. But when I got still and quiet, it only made my mind more active. To me, getting to a place where my mind was quiet and still was just impossible. But this isn't actually what meditation is. Meditation is not about trying to get rid of all the thoughts in your head, nor is it the absence of thinking. Meditation is all about being aware of your thoughts, and more importantly, it is the awareness that you are not your thoughts. It's the place where you say, I have thoughts, but I am not my thoughts. And through the awareness of the thoughts, you transcend the thoughts. Most of the time when thoughts are controlling us, especially negative thoughts, it's because we are not aware of those thoughts. And instead, we identify with the thoughts. And once we identify with a thought, we empower the thought to take full charge over us. But you see, this is what makes meditation such an extraordinary practice. Meditation is like a secret pathway that takes us beyond the veil of the thinking mind and into this place of deep inner stillness and silence, full of pure awareness, full of presence, full of love, full of bliss, and full of a divine peace that surpasses all understanding. Meditation is not about trying to be still, but as we become more aware in meditation, meditation itself brings us into a stillness that we could never get to by our efforts to get still on our own. Now, before I go on about what meditation really is, know this, because this is like the most important thing to understand about meditation. Meditation is not about controlling your thoughts. I can't say this enough. And it's not about trying not to think about anything. It is first and foremost about being aware of thoughts. And this is where it all begins. Imagine you are sitting on a riverbank looking at a river, and all of a sudden boats start passing by. Some boats are moving slow, and some boats are moving fast. These boats represent your thoughts. Now notice two things. Number one, you are not your thoughts in this analogy. You are simply aware of your thoughts. You are observing. You are witnessing your thoughts. You are watching them move up and down the river. And because you are just observing them go by, you are not trying to control them, nor are you trying to stop them. But every now and then, a boat pulls up to where you were sitting on the riverbank and offers to take you on board. In this moment, you have the option to stay on the riverbank and continue to observe the boats go by, or you can get on the boat. But once you are on the boat, you are now giving the boat permission to control you. When a certain thought, especially a negative thought, consumes or overtakes our mind, it's because we stepped away from being the one that's aware of the boats passing by. And we've stepped onto a particular boat and we've allowed the boat, the thought, to steer us. Now, although meditation is not about trying to not think and not about trying to control the mind or think less, once we learn to become aware of our thoughts, once we learn to just sit on the riverbank and just watch the boats pass by without getting on the boats, we begin to enter a state of consciousness where thoughts become less and less. Meditation is not about trying to think less, but as we become more aware of our thoughts during meditation, meditation itself brings us into a place of inner silence that we could never get to by our efforts to get quiet on our own. As we sit in the place of pure awareness and watch the thoughts pass by without being dictated or identifying with the thoughts, all of a sudden the thoughts begin to subside and eventually they disappear altogether. Now, one of the most important keys to meditation is focusing on one primary object. This one primary object can be a thought, a feeling, an emotion, a visual object like a candle flame, a dot on the wall, a scripture verse, a sound, a mantra, a painting, something in nature like beautiful scenery, just whatever works best for you. And one of the most common primary objects practiced in meditation is simply the breath, following the breath, which is also a thought, but it's just one thought. And this is what the mind needs in order for a shift in consciousness to take place. Following the breath is one of my favorite primary objects to focus on during meditation. Sometimes while I'm breathing in, I'll say quietly in my mind, rising. And then while I'm breathing out, I'll say real quietly in my mind, falling. And I'll just repeat this over and over and over again. Or if I'm not following my breath, my primary object will be the thought of love, joy, or mercy. In fact, focusing on mercy as my primary object during meditation has led to some of my most intense mystical experiences that were full of tangible bliss and a heightened awareness of divine union. In my own experience, I've found that having that primary object of concentration and focus is so important during meditation Because for me, I remember when I first started practicing meditation, I started to become aware of my thoughts and just letting them pass instead of being consumed and controlled by them. And this was great. This was awesome for me at first, and it was definitely a huge step for me in my journey. But I noticed that even though I was aware of my thoughts, witnessing my thoughts, it was still hard not to be distracted by all the thoughts that I was witnessing. And so this is when I started implementing the primary object. And when I started applying this technique in my meditation, my experiences in meditation became unbelievably life-changing. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But for now, I want to explain why the primary object technique is so powerful and effective. So when you start meditating, the first thing you'll notice is that your thoughts will increase and become more active as soon as you try to be still and silent, as I've already mentioned. But by focusing your mind on one primary object, you draw your attention to one thing, on one thought instead of multiple thoughts. And as you do this, you will notice that the mind will keep trying to create more unnecessary thoughts like a machine. And it will even try to get you to stop focusing on the primary object. When this happens, all you do is gently bring your attention and focus back to that one thing. And what you'll notice is that the longer you stay present and focused on that one thing, the less and less other thoughts will try to arise until eventually the one thought, that one thing, totally consumes your awareness. And then from here, this is where things get interesting, because after a while, the thought of the primary object also starts to fade away. And at this point, you will begin to fully experience the real you, the true self that I talked about in my last video. You see, behind the thinking mind, which is where we live from most of the time, there is a divine stillness, a silence, and a peace that transcends the mind and all of the intellectual understanding that comes with it. This quiet space of pure spirit is where the true self goes from being a mere philosophical concept to a direct, life-changing experience. Now, when you get to this place and you start having an experience of divine union or bliss or oneness, the mind will become very active again, and it will start making you question the experience and doubt the experience. And if you allow the mind to consume you here and control you, the experience may begin to dwindle. And once again, if this starts to happen, just gently return to the primary object. When you get to this place, when the mind is quiet and you start to move into your heart space, what you will begin to notice is that you will start to become very aware of the present moment. The mind and all of its thoughts are typically always focused on the past or the future, but it's never really wants to just be fully present right here, right now. But as you enter into the heart space and you transcend the mind, the present moment becomes everything. And this is where the deep divine peace comes from. Learning how to live from this place and understanding that this present moment is all that there is by far the greatest lesson meditation can teach us. Something that can be extremely helpful when applying the primary object technique is listening to music during your time of meditation. Now, this might not work for everyone, and it could be a distraction for some, but for me, it is a very helpful modality as I'm trying to really focus in on my primary object. So, when I was growing up, whenever I would be listening to music, and not just any music, but that kind of music that really touched my soul, I noticed that my thoughts, my thinking mind, the constant rumination would start to slow down the more I would allow the music to move me. And the more I became aware of how the music was touching my heart, the more I noticed that my mind was simultaneously focusing in on one thing that really meant a lot to me, something that really penetrated the depths of my soul. And so it was like I was practicing the primary object technique without even realizing it for years before I even started really prioritizing and practicing meditation. And I'm sure many of you know exactly what I'm talking about, and I've had similar experiences where a certain song comes on, and during that song, something about it, and it doesn't even have to be the words, it could be the instruments playing in the background, or the climax, or just the overall melody, but something about it makes you really think and focus on one particular thing. Maybe it's a person, or a place, or a memory, or an emotion, or a feeling, or an idea, or whatever. But when the song is playing and you are really captivated by how it makes you feel, it tends to then draw your focus onto one thing, and you kind of forget about everything else you were thinking about and worrying about before the song came on. Pay attention to this the next time that song, whatever that song is for you, comes on. Pay attention to how much all the unnecessary random thoughts just kind of fade out. Pay attention to what emotions come up. Pay attention to how you feel during certain parts of the song, like during the chorus or during the climax. Music is not necessary for meditation, but it is certainly an enhancement for meditation. And then when you start to have experiences in deeper states of meditation, the music can sometimes enhance the experience you are having. And so there were many times in my life growing up where I would be listening to music and I noticed how certain songs and certain parts in certain songs, or a certain voice or a certain instrument, would take me to a deep place within my heart, deep within my soul. And when I say heart or soul, I mean that place within yourself that is beyond the thinking mind. It's more of a feeling than a thought, and you can feel it like sometimes in your gut. And then when you start getting goosebumps, or that warm feeling inside, or when you get that first tear, do not think that this is just nothing, and do not think that this is just your mind. When you start to cry, or when you get that warm feeling inside, or when you get goosebumps, this is something far beyond the mind. All of these things are invitations to keep pressing into the feeling, to keep pressing into the moment. These feelings are the doorway into the heart space. And once you get to this place, once you start feeling these things, don't try to control what you're experiencing here, because the more you let go, the more you allow these feelings and sensations to draw you into the heart space. And so for myself, I noticed how easy it was to get into that place during certain songs. And so when I started meditating, I would purposely use these songs to get into my heart space, because I knew that once I was in my heart space, it would be a lot easier to concentrate on that one thing, on the primary object. So while I was listening to the music that was touching my heart, I would begin to focus on an emotion or a thought or someone I loved. And then all of a sudden, I would enter into a heavenly state of consciousness, and unfathomable love, peace, acceptance, and joy would just completely overtake me. And there are no words to describe what this experience is really like. And what's really fascinating is that when you are experiencing this spiritual experience that is beyond all thoughts and words, it is nothing more than the experience of the real you, your true self. The divine love that you encounter in this moment is not a feeling. It's you. You, the real you, are perfect love. And like I said, There is no way to describe how amazing this experience really is. But once you have the experience, you will never see yourself, others, and the world around you the same. You'll start to see God in everyone and in everything. And the transformative effect it will have on your life will be above and beyond anything you can imagine. And so I highly recommend incorporating some kind of music into your meditation, if it doesn't distract you. I know for me it's typically slower music, classical music, but again, the type of music can be different for everyone, and ultimately you have to figure out what gets you into the heart space. And it's definitely a lot easier to focus on the primary object while you're in the heart space versus being in your mind. Now, don't think that the mind is bad, because the mind is not bad at all. The mind is the most incredible phenomenon of the material world. And it is designed with an astonishing capacity for thought, creativity, and intellect. It is a gift from God. The mind is something that we need to live here on earth. It's a wonderful tool, but it is designed to help us, not to be us. So we need the mind, we use the mind, but we are not the mind. And we are not to be ultimately controlled by the mind. By being aware of the mind and the thoughts of the mind, we start to align the mind with our heart. And this is when we tap into supernatural potential. It's where thoughts of gratitude and love replace fear and doubt. And through meditation, we rewire our neural pathways, which allows us to fully realize who we really are and live fully from the true self. This is mind-heart coherence. One thing you'll find with meditation is that there is no single one and only right way to practice it. You can be sitting down, lying down, walking, dancing, running, or you can be in the traditional lotus position. There are many ways, but ultimately the best way is the way that works best for you. And that can look different for everybody. There's also many different kinds of meditation. So just because one kind of meditation doesn't work well for you doesn't mean that all meditations won't work for you. Take time to try different meditations and be open to whichever kind enables you to get into that deep inner stillness, that deep awareness where you begin to experience who you really are. And as far as time goes, meditation really doesn't have to be practiced for that long. It doesn't have to be for hours, as some people think. 15 to 20 minutes is great, and that's normally what I'll do. But sometimes after 20 minutes, you'll want to go longer, and if that's the case, just go with the flow. And most importantly, just be fully in the present moment. Meditation is the most effective and powerful practice in the world that will immensely transform your life more than anything else. And it's completely free. You can practice it every day, and it never leaves you, because ultimately it is the practice of discovering and experiencing yourself, your true self, the I amness, the you behind the you that is one with the divine, the you that is consciousness, existence, and bliss, the you that is free, full of love, peace, and joy, the real you. Meditation is what brings you home to yourself. The idea of separation is created by the mind, but as we transcend the mind, we realize that we're not separated. We're one with God and one with everything else. Meditation is where you realize that you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop, as Rumi said. And remember, it's so easy and simple. It only becomes complicated if we make it complicated. So find a comfortable, quiet, restful place and begin to just sit back and watch your thoughts pass by. Notice how much those thoughts try to grab at you. Notice how much those thoughts create your reality. Notice how much they create all these judgments and negative emotions. And then slowly just let them go. Let them do whatever they want. because you are just witnessing them. You'll get thoughts like, this is boring and nothing is happening and why the hell am I doing this and I'm hungry and I'm tired and so on. But remember, those are just thoughts. So let this pass and even become aware of the voice in your head. Recognize that the voice in your head is not you. You are the awareness of the voice. Then when you're ready, find something to concentrate on. Follow your breath. Pick one thought, one feeling, one emotion. And when other thoughts try to steal your attention, just gently go back to that one thing, that one object. And eventually that one thing, that one object, that one thought will start to fade. And you will begin to experience that perfect peace that resides in that space in your heart. And as you stay in that place, in that space, miracles happen, manifestations happen, mystical experiences happen, divine union is fully realized, and from here, your life will never be the same. One of the main goals of meditation is to align the mind with the heart. It's not about getting rid of the mind, it's about experiencing mind-heart coherence. And the more we do this, the more meditation becomes less of a practice and more of a lifestyle. So I encourage you all to start meditating. It doesn't have to be long. It can be for 5 minutes, but do it for 30 days, a month. And immediately you will start to notice health benefits such as lower stress, better sleep, better mood, less anxiety, increased concentration. And these things are just some of the bonuses that come along with it. But the greatest thing about meditation is that it is the doorway to experiencing your true self, to experiencing the spirit realm, and to experience the presence of God that is always present deep in your heart. Spiritual teachings, concepts, and principles are great and can be very helpful. But in order to have life-changing transformation, we need spiritual experience. And this is what meditation offers us. Life-changing spiritual experience. I hope you found this video very informative, insightful, and helpful. And if you have enjoyed it, please like this video by leaving a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.